Like and subscribe, click the bell for the best manga and novel recaps. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Dragged into another world. Halfway conscious, I felt the cold floor beneath me. I opened my eyes. Huh? Where am I? I whispered. I found myself in a spacious, luxurious hall. There was a bearded man sitting in a large chair in front of me, surrounded by a good number of elderly men. It was impossible to comprehend what was going on since I was still half-conscious. When I focused a little more on the bearded man, I realized that he was sitting on some sort of throne. He was clad in lavish foreign clothes and wearing a crown. The old men behind him are dressed like royal attendants from my RPGs. As my eyes shifted from the old men to my other surroundings, a group of different men came into view. Adorned in armor and Western-looking swords, the men appeared to be soldiers standing in a line side by side. "Hey, are you okay, Usato?" asked Kazuki. He was seated next to me and had an apprehensive look in his eyes. Thank goodness the three of us didn't get separated. If Kazuki's here, that probably means that Senpai's close by. "Kazuki, what happened?" I asked, surveying the room. I discovered that Inukami was sitting beside me and had already waken up. Sleepy-eyed Senpai is so sexy. I was merely avoiding reality by filling my head with pervy thoughts. I'm not sure. All I know is that when I woke up, I was surrounded by people who were wearing weird clothes. Gotcha. Are you okay, Senpai? Oh, no need to worry. I am completely unharmed. The man in the crown noticed that we were awake and was staring right at us. His solemn gaze was a little intimidating. "It appears they have awoken," he said. The man looked incredibly important, so I couldn't imagine what he could have wanted from students like us. With my head still in a daze, I slowly looked around the room to get a grasp on the situation. Kazuki cautiously turned to the man in the crown. "Who the hell are all of you?" Kazuki said. The kingly figure's guards weren't pleased with his presumptuous tone. "You cur! How dare you disrespect His Majesty!" they shouted. But the kingly figure quieted his attendants with a wave of his hand. No matter. Saying such things is only natural when you suddenly find yourself in a place like this. Do not look down on them, Sergio. But understood, Sergio replied. Pardon him. He is quite stubborn, remarked the crowned figure. Yes, Your Majesty, Sergio admitted. My name is Lloyd Vulgast Linger, King of Linger Kingdom. Linger Kingdom? Nope, never heard of that country before. Not that I know the name of every country in the world, anyway. Allow me to speak frankly. You have been summoned to Linger Kingdom too. Serve as our heroes, said the king. Did you just say heroes? Asked Kazuki in disbelief. Just then, I heard someone next to me whisper, I knew it! I'm just gonna believe Senpai didn't say that just now. Senpai, please don't destroy your image as a cold-hearted queen any more than you already have. Kazuki's being serious, so calm yourself down. Indeed. In this world, the Demon Lord, the being who reigns supreme over all demons, has been resurrected. He commands an army that is quickly recruiting soldiers across the land. 2 years ago, the people of Linger Kingdom took part in a battle that they knew would likely cost them their lives. Although we fought with great vigor, we barely survived against the Demon Lord's powerful forces. Demon Lord? Kazuki stammered. At the end of that frantic struggle, we somehow managed to drive their forces away. However, there is no telling when they might strike next. Therefore, we had no choice but to turn to our last resort, to use forbidden techniques and summon otherworldly beings capable of vanquishing the Demon Lord. Senpai, I know you're hyped, but now's not the time to be happily slapping your legs. My image of you is crumbling. No, it's crumbled. Now it's just a pile of dust. We're capable? Inukami muttered. The magic circle summons those who are capable of being heroes and transports them to our world. when you were being summoned, did you not hear the sound of a bell? So that's what that sound was. But that means Usato. Kazuki turned to me. He looked like he felt sorry for me. It was a ringing sound that only those who are capable can hear. In other words, I couldn't hear it, so I wasn't capable. Was I brought here by accident? I inquired. It was the only reasonable conclusion. It's okay, guys. I don't mind. Plus, I've got plenty of redeeming qualities. I really hate losing, and I'll never give up. Inukami and Kazuki stared at me with perplexed looks on their faces. From that alone, I could tell that I didn't belong in this world. Knowing that I was sent here by accident felt like it was going to shatter my heart. The king noticed that I was holding my chest in pain and gravely closed his eyes. Oh no. They're gonna get rid of me because I can't help them, aren't they? Why am I the only one who has to play on hard mode? Indeed, you were caught up in the summoning, the king said. As much as we would like to send you home, an otherworldly summoning is a one-way operation. We can bring outsiders here, but we cannot send them back. That goes for you two as well. Hey, this king seems pretty nice. Actually, never mind. Hero summoning or not, I can't rush to conclusions about a guy who selfishly drags heroes into his own mess. But I began to tell him that there were no hard feelings anyway. Don't worry about... This is bullshit! Shouted Kazuki, cutting me off. In response to Kazuki's anger, the soldiers reached for the swords on their hips. Hold up! I get that you're angry, Kazuki, but keep it cool, will ya? Don't provoke the soldiers unless you want to get killed, Kazuki continued. What's supposed to happen to us? I've got a family back home, and so does Senpai and Usato. I truly am sorry, the king said solemnly, but we were desperate. Kazuki clenched his fist and took a step toward the king. We had just become friends, but I began to see what a great guy Kazuki was. Here he was fighting for us, and there I was, such a screwball that I couldn't even get serious. Calm down, Kazuki, I said. Lashing out won't help us. If you say so, Usato. My words seemed to affect him more than I'd thought. The king stood up, then descended from his throne and approached us. He bowed deeply, remorsefully. I understand it was selfish, but I promise you that I will find a way to send you back home. Until then, I beg you, please lend us your power. As this bizarre scene played out, Kazuki quickly calmed down. He heaved a hopeless sigh and bowed to the king. I apologize for the outburst. Please tell us everything. We'll take it from there. We are grateful for your forgiveness, said the king. Kazuki turned to me and Inukami and nodded. Giving a thumbs up, Inukami flashed a smile that was more invigorated than I'd ever seen her at school. She was definitely having the most fun out of all of us. Asterisk. In the end, Kazuki accepted the king's mission. Kazuki was originally going to refuse, but he reluctantly accepted when he heard of the terrible conditions that were brought on by the Demon Lord's resurrection. Inukami didn't particularly object to his decision either. Actually, it felt like she was more than ready to go, though I had no idea why. As for me, I said that I'd let Kazuki decide, partly because this was entertaining, and partly because they were the only reason I was here in the first place. A kingdom mage named Welsi had led us out of the grand hall into an old, musty room. Now then, Kazuki-sama, Suzune-sama, Usato-sama, said Welsi. We would like to measure your magical aptitude with this crystal ball. According to Welsi, simply touching the crystal ball enshrined at the center of the room would show us our aptitude. In other words, it would tell us what type of magic we'd wield. Apparently, there were many types of magic, with the most traditional being fire, water, lightning, and the like. But there were many other types too, such as teleportation and illusion magic, which only certain races had the ability to use. I had a hard time believing all this was real. However, I thought that if I could really use magic, I'd want magic that would help me support Inukami and Kazuki. I tested my luck and asked if Welsi could measure my aptitude too. Even though she instantly approved my request, I knew I'd be super nervous to see what would happen. "All right, Kazuki-sama, please touch the crystal ball," said Welsi. I was daydreaming, wondering what ability I'd get as I waited in line when... Suddenly I heard Welsi yelp in excitement. I quickly glanced at the crystal ball. It was giving off a white glow under Kazuki's hand. "Well, if it isn't a true sign of a hero," Welsi said joyfully. "All this hero stuff makes me feel so left out. Every time I hear the word hero, my brain feels like a wet tissue that's about to be ripped. Wait, what's this?" Kazuki doesn't seem too thrilled. "What's wrong, Kazuki?" I asked. "I mean, light? What's so good about that? Do I fight enemies by shining a light in their eyes? What's the point?" he lamented. "Just shoot him with your laser beam, Kazuki-kun," Inukami exclaimed. "Or use a lightsaber to—" "Senpai, you shouldn't joke around like that," I said. "This girl is nuts. Bring her to another world and she becomes a total weirdo." "You're so mean, Usato-kun. But you know, I kinda like it," Inukami said. "Okay, that's just plain creepy. Whoever said she's the prettiest girl in school must be crazy." "Oh, wait, that was me." No, you don't understand. Light magic is incredible," said Welsi. "A truly rare affinity that can only be used by very few people. It boasts unrivaled power in demon battles, the greatest attribute of all." Oh, I see," said Kazuki, feeling slightly weirded out by Welsi's enthusiastic explanation. Unable to watch Kazuki any longer, Inukami butted in. "Can you check what kind of magic I can use next, Welsi?" "Oh yes, certainly. Now then, please touch the crystal ball like Kazuki-sama did." Inukami placed her hand on the crystal ball just as Welsi had said. "Suzune-sama is yellow, meaning that you have an aptitude for lightning magic. You can store just as much magic power as Kazuki-sama." "Lightning, huh? Heh. So long as Senpai's happy, that's all that counts. But even so, lightning? What an affinity. One that every boy admires at least once in their life." Then the time came. I was up next. I felt a little excited as I drew near the crystal ball, wondering what kind of magic I could possibly use. "All right, Usato-sama, please hold out your hand," Welsi said. "Okay." I nervously placed my hand on the crystal ball and waited to see what would happen. After a few seconds, the crystal ball turned a slightly transparent shade of green. It was certainly clearer than Kazuki and Inukami's, but the color looked nothing like theirs. It was a color that was easy on the eyes. Welsi suddenly let out another yelp. Welsi?" I stuttered. "Why is she examining the crystal ball up close?" Inukami and Kazuki were also staring at the crystal ball. "What a beautiful color. It's almost like an emerald green," remarked Inukami. "Yeah, mine didn't even have a color, just a flash of light and that's it," added Kazuki. Welsi had told us that the clearness represents the depth of one's magic power and that the color represents their affinity. It's kinda clear, so I think it's pretty good. Maybe. "Does it mean that you control plants?" "Hey, wait, is something wrong, Welsi? You're white as a ghost." "Must tell them." "Pardon?" Why did Welsi grab my hand? "I must tell them." She ran out of the room, keeping an iron grip on my hand. Why? What happened? Did I do something wrong? We ran back to the great hall where the king was seated. Welsi dragged me before him as I struggled to catch my breath. I hadn't held hands with a girl since the first grade, but this felt somewhat different. If I'm not mistaken, holding hands isn't supposed to involve running full speed out of fear. "Your Majesty." "What is the matter, Welsi? Have you learned their aptitudes? My word is that Usato. Where are the others?" Kazuki-sama and Suzune-sama have incredible potential. It's just that... So, just because Usato was sent here by accident does not mean we shall ignore his wishes. This guy's too nice to be king. It's not that, Your Majesty. I am fully aware of that. It's his aptitude. It's... Whatever could it be? Don't tell me he has the power to control darkness, and now does he? Yeah, right, bellowed the king. The king and his men broke out in laughter, but Welsie didn't smile at all. The serious look on her face made me even more nervous. The boy is a healer. What? What did you say? The laughter suddenly stopped. The crystal ball turned green, meaning that he is capable of using healing magic. Healing magic? What, so I can cure people? That's it? Silence filled the room. Why is everyone so quiet? Wait, is this magic really weak? Is it so bad that it's not even funny? I have the power to treat injuries, right? Then why does it feel like we're at a funeral? The king looked at me and cleared his throat. Having an aptitude for healing magic is unheard of. The ordinary mage can administer basic first aid, but there are very few healers in this country who can heal deeper wounds, said the king with a mix of glee and bewilderment. Is that a bad thing? No, not at all. You see, it's, well, why don't you go to the infirmary in the castle town tomorrow? I knew this would happen. Now I'm just scared. What are these people hiding from me? You really should, Sir Usato. The people around me chimed in to agree. Indeed. What a wonderful development. You simply must go to the infirmary, Usato-sama. Weltsie's hand started sweating, and it was getting worse by the second. All of them sounded desperate. It was almost as if they were begging me to go. Wait, I thought you said there were other mages who could heal in the kingdom, I said. Listen, those two are fine, but that woman is no good. No good at all, the king replied. Who is this woman, and why is the king so afraid of her? Everyone was nodding profusely, which made it clear that this woman was a force to be reckoned with. The moment I opened my mouth to tell the king I would go, a panicked soldier burst through the doorway into the great hall. Your Majesty, it's Rose-sama! She's here! What? Do not let her in the building, especially not now, the king said. Huh? But, wait, who the heck is Rose? The moment I heard her name, the men around begged me to hide and to do it at once. I didn't know if hiding would help me, but in any case, I couldn't go anywhere because Welsie was still holding my hand. You can let go of my hand now, Welsie. Huh? Did you just say I'm sorry? Why are you apologizing to me? I tried tearing free from Welsie's hand as tears welled up in her eyes. Amid that struggle, the door to the great hall swung open. Your Majesty, no one told me the heroes were here. Oh no. Welsie covered her mouth and quietly whispered, She's here. A beautiful green-haired woman entered the room. She may have been wearing a thick white robe that looked like a doctor's coat, but the scar that sealed her right eye shut made it clear she was dangerous. She walked straight up to the throne and approached the king, who was now drenched in sweat. Why are you so surprised to see me? There's something you don't want me to know? Of course not, Rose. Didn't you take today off? The woman named Rose started glaring at me. Ack, who is this scary person? They don't want her to know that I have an aptitude for healing, do they? This boy is not a hero. As sad as it may be, our recklessness brought him here by mistake, the poor lad, the king said frantically. You don't say. Boy, what's your name? Usato. Usato, eh? I'm Rose, captain of the kingdom's rescue team, at your service. Rescue team? She saves lives? Looks more like she takes them. I felt a droplet of sweat run down my face. Yes. Now you've met. Usato is quite tired, so he should get some rest. Makes sense. So, Where are the other heroes, Your Majesty? She demanded. Oh, they're right over. Hey, Usato, are you okay? Inukami asked. Kazuki and Inukami had followed us into the room. You just took off, Welsi, Kazuki announced. The king glanced over at the two of them. There are the heroes. Oh, nice and fearless, aren't they? Rose said. Rose's attention shifted to Kazuki and Inukami. The king was clearly relieved. I couldn't blame him. I was also relieved to have escaped her piercing gaze. I'm okay, Kazuki, I said. Whoa, what was that all about? I don't know what got into you, Welsi, but you really scared us back there. Especially after you looked all scared and dragged Usato out of the room when he made the crystal ball turn green. Crap, he said it. At that moment, I knew I was done for. I was once again hit with her piercing gaze. Did you just say green? Rose's lips twisted into a smile. The king looked as if he'd seen a ghost, and of course I looked the same. I was in grave danger for the first time in my life. Kazuki, the perpetrator of this crime, was standing close by. I know he didn't mean to do it, but still, wish he would have realized what was going on, at least. Rose glared at me as my legs trembled with fear. She was eerily grinning as if I were her prey. She then turned to the king. All right, King Lloyd. I'm gonna borrow this runt for a while. Welsi, bring Usato to safety. He is an incredibly important guest in our country. Do not let her take him to that place, the king ordered. To that place? You don't mean... Welsi began. Welsi jumped out in front of me, wielding a staff. I hid behind her so I couldn't see what was going on. When I moved to the side for visibility, Rose was already gone. Even Welsi uttered a bewildered, "Ooh, where are you?" Suddenly, I felt like I was floating. I was being held in someone's arms. When I looked up, I saw that Rose was carrying me across the floor. I weighed a whole 60 kilograms, and yet here she was, carrying me in one arm like it was nothing. Your Majesty, I'm gonna turn this kid into a proper healer, and don't you forget it! The king quickly stood up from his seat. Wait, I beg you. I know you need a healer, but this boy was merely brought here by chance, he shouted. But Rose was laughing too hard to hear the king's plea. I had no idea what to do. Kazuki and Inukami looked just as perplexed. Huh? What is this, a kidnapping? When I finally understood what was happening, it was too late. All I could do was avoid meeting the eyes of this woman who savagely smiled at me. Asterisk. Usato-kun was taken away. I calmed myself down for a moment, then turned my attention to King Lloyd. But Usato is an average guy who has nothing to do with this, shouted Kazuki. I also chimed in. Where is Usato-kun going? And what did she mean when she said she's going to turn him into a healer? Even if I wanted to run away and save him, it was sure to fail. First, I had to get all the information I could out of King Lloyd. Welsi, please explain the situation, said King Lloyd, falling back into his seat with a thud. He was too exhausted to explain anything himself, so he asked her to do so in his place. This Rose lady must have really worn the king down. Yes, Your Majesty. You see, started Welsi, taking a few steps toward us. She is taking him to a place that houses the rescue team, not too far from here. It is managed by Captain Rose, along with her 5 assistants and 2 healers. The 8 of them run the organization. Are there only 8 of them? Does that mean they're short-handed? Doesn't it take a much bigger party to fight actual monsters? They have enough. Mages can use basic first aid regardless of aptitude. Therefore, they can heal their own wounds and those of their allies. But graver injuries cannot be healed so quickly. In those cases, we need mages who have the same aptitude as Usato. So their real ability is to heal people who can't heal them themselves, meaning that Usato-kun may be a very important healer to the kingdom. Why didn't you want Rose to look after Usato-kun? May I, Your Majesty? Asked Welsi. You may, he said. Seems pretty complicated. Rose-sama is a healing expert. It's just, how do I put it? The way she educates her subordinates is a little eccentric. Eccentric? In what way? I asked. Well, I don't know too many details, but I hear that she is quite strict. She tells her trainees that being in the rescue team means that they will have to stare death in the face, so she gives them grueling exercises that she claims will teach them techniques to survive the impossible. Most cannot handle such taxing training, so trainees are constantly running away. Originally, the kingdom's knights and the rescue team were supposed to undergo Rose-sama's training together, but the knights couldn't endure it. Now only the rescue team trains under Rose-sama. Your knights couldn't take it? Is this Rose person freakishly strong? I inquired. King Lloyd rubbed his chin as if he were reliving a fond memory. Oh, he answered. She may be with the rescue team now, but before that well, we can talk about this later. In any case, the average knight is no match for Rose. When the Demon Lord's army invaded, the rescue team saved a great number of lives. In fact, we couldn't have staved them off without her assistance. As her successes confirm, her training methods are not mistaken. However, yes? I asked. Lloyd heaved a heavy sigh, staring into the distance. Completing that training comes at a price. The king clearly couldn't catch a break, and I couldn't help worrying about Usato-kun's safety. Asterisk. Rose brought me to a brick house that wasn't too far from the castle. By that time, the sky had already turned dark. I entered the building at Rose's request. It was pristine inside. Further into the house were hospital beds, and things that I could have only imagined were medical supplies. I surveyed the room as I quietly marveled at how clean it was, and how much it resembled an infirmary. This is where you'll live from now on, Rose said. Huh? Hey guys, say hi to the new kid. Come here, Rose shouted. At that moment, I heard footsteps run toward me from the back of the house. The first person who entered the room was a burly man. He stood up straight before Rose. What? This guy's terrifying. Welcome home, Sister Rose. Yo, Alec. Any messages while I was gone? No messages as usual. Oh, good. Men filled the room behind Alec. I grimaced as I looked at their faces. Is this yet another world? I'm gonna be looking after Usato from now on, so play nice with him, got it? Yes, ma'am, they shouted. Great, she said. Nothing about this is great. Seeing as I was being uncharacteristically feisty, I looked at the 5 sinister-looking men who stood before me and genuinely worried about the future. At this point, I didn't know if I would make it home alive. In fact, I feared that the house was a bandit's hideout for a second and glanced at Rose out of fear. What's up, Usato? Oh, right. You don't know their names. Fellas, introductions. Yup. Pretty sure that this lady has no idea what I'm thinking. I genuinely doubt that she's scared of these men. Oh, wait. She's the team captain, so she's just like them in a way. Now the scary-looking men are surrounding me. What are they doing? Oh, wait. I'll get down on all fours and apologize. Just please let me live. The tallest man of the bunch stepped forward. The name's Tong. I specialize in sterilization. At your service, new kid, he said, his voice incredibly deep. He wore a twisted grin as sweat dripped down his face. Sterilization? Yeah, right. Only if it's with a flamethrower, I bet. After that, the other men introduced themselves one by one. I'm Mill. At your service, new kid. I'm Alec. At your service, new kid. I'm Gomel. At your service, new kid. I'm Gerd. At your service, new kid. I started crying. I'm sorry. Crying isn't cool when you're a second year in high school. but in my defense, I think just about anyone would cry in a situation like this. I was surrounded by scary-looking guys who'd cut off all escape routes and were coming at me with introductions from every direction. What was I? A sacrifice? Was I a sacrifice to them? Anybody who wouldn't cry in this situation is nuts. "Hey, knock it off! Quit scaring the new guy!" Rose shouted. Tong let out a yelp of pain and was gone. Rose had kicked him across the room. Putting a hand to her head in frustration, she yelled at the other 4 men through clenched teeth. "Honestly, you scare me the most!" "As long as you're nice to him, I don't care. Do I make myself clear?" "We were only trying to welcome him, Sister Rose," said the stout man named Mill. I was downright in a state of shock. This is what they call a warm welcome? Their warped view of hospitality sent shivers down my spine, and I couldn't hide it. Rose punted Mill across the room too, then shifted her piercing gaze back to me. "Oh, brother. Usato, these guys aren't healers, but they're still my subordinates. Their main duty is to secure injured soldiers on the front lines. There are 2 others who can use healing magic, but unfortunately, they're working somewhere else at the moment. That's why I'm gonna teach you healing magic myself." "Huh? That's not a proper response." Yes, ma'am." "Good. We'll start your training tomorrow. You can stay in Tong's room. It's not being used, is it, Tong? Did my freedom just fly out the window? I'm the only one in my room." "Okay, good. Give him the lowdown. It's late, so get your asses to bed." "Yes, ma'am," they shouted. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Follow me. I'll show you to your room," said Tong. So I did exactly that. The room was surprisingly normal. It was clean, organized, and relatively minimalistic. I sat down on a bed, marveling at how different it was from my room back on Earth. I was surprised, to say the least. I figured there would at least be some chains and flamethrowers lying around. "Hey, new kid," Tong said suddenly. I found myself shaking because I wasn't expecting him to speak. "Yes, sir," I answered, still trembling. He was incredibly tall, which made him rather intimidating. "Don't call me sir. No need to be formal round me." "Okay." Mustering the confidence to answer him was mentally draining. Just then, Tong threw me some plain-looking clothes. "Use these clothes when you're training. You got 3 outfits right there, so switch out the pants and shirts when you can. The bathroom's just down the hallway. Any other questions and you'll have to ask Sister." "Thanks." I'd been wearing my stuffy school uniform this whole time, so I was happy to have some regular clothes. I changed into my new clothes and put the old ones away where Tong had told me to put them. Tong was already lying in bed, facing away from me. What the hell? He's not a brute. He's just shy, isn't he? Damn Sundari. "Training kills, so you'll want to sleep early, especially your healing training. Tomorrow's gonna be hell." "Hell? You can heal your own wounds with that magic, if you catch my drift." "Oh, does that mean I'll have to keep training even if I get injured?" I felt all the blood drain from my face. Because I could heal my own wounds, I doubted that Rose would let me rest. Even so, she was the head honcho. Before learning healing magic from her, I wanted to practice a little. I wasn't there on my own volition, but if she was going to teach me healing magic anyway, being her apprentice didn't sound like a bad idea. "Can you teach me what healing magic is all about?" This was my chance. I was in another world where I could learn a technique that would give me extraordinary power. I didn't know what the future would bring, but at the very least I wanted to enjoy the fantastical life I'd always dreamed of. Plus, if I completed this training, I could support Kazuki and Inukami. "What? Shh! For Pete's sake, listen up!" Tong barked. "Here's the lowdown. If I'm being nice, I'd say healers are mages who are good at healing. But if I'm being blunt, I'd say they're mages who don't got no skills." "No skills?" "Yeah. They're walking targets on the battlefield since offensive magic ain't their thing. They were treated like trash in this country until a few years ago, But even now, other countries still treat them like they're useless. It made sense. I could see how healers would be targeted on the battlefield and treated like trash. Even I killed healers first in all my games. Hell, I used to think healers were small fries, until everything changed, he went on. What changed? I said too much. Good night. Hey, no fair! Don't leave me hanging! Shut your trap and go to sleep, dumbass, yelled Tong. He slumped back into bed. You don't have to yell at me like that, you know? Feeling shaken, I cried a little in bed as I prepared myself for my first day of training.